A very warm welcome to the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show. And today's show is empowering business leaders with vision, strategy for sustained growth, which captures the world of a business troubleshooting specialist, operating with premier business turnaround experts, acting as the executive chair of MENTupLEADup practitioners, specializing in driving business productivity and profitability for effective leadership. The team excels in transforming businesses into thriving enterprises by offering strategic insights and practical solutions tailored to a business or businesses' unique challenges. Yes, folks, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome on the show Michelle Lestas, the CEO of Michelle Lestas Associates. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Oh, Lord Russell, thank you. It's a real delight to be here and to take the opportunity to have a chat.
Absolutely. And it's a real pleasure to have you on, Michelle, as well. I know we did a show earlier on in the year. So this is the second one for us this year. And I'm really looking forward to this. Well, I'll tell you
Absolutely.
what, I always start from the beginning, Michelle. It's the best way to start. So, Michelle, you grew up in a family business, and these early family ventures taught you at a very young age to consider small, medium enterprises, that's SMEs, leadership as part of your DNA. So please enlighten us more on your early family business traditions.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for anybody out there who grew up with a family, in a family where there was a family business, you'll probably really get what I mean. In that you are a youngster and you're absorbing all of this conversation around you, all of this adult conversation around you. And it's soaking up, you're soaking it up a little bit like a sponge.
Mm.
And it's not until you get to later life that you actually realize, yes, that is actually what was happening. But I did grow up and the key thing was that, the mantra in our family was you go off, you do your own thing. There's no obligation here to stay here as such. So I went off, did my degrees, did my MBA, worked for other organizations. I was one of probably what I would call a typical entrepreneur trying to work within the corporate sector, and it just wasn't working. So I kept moving jobs quite often. Every time I moved, I went to a higher role, a more senior role. And I left at the peak probably as a CEO of one of the intermediary funding bodies for European funds. And, I left that and took the bold decision to go out and set up my own business, and it was
Wow.
very bold. It was a very bold decision.
I can totally get that. We've all done it, haven't we? Let's be honest. It is bold. We never know where it's going to end up sometimes. So good for you, Michelle, to take
Mm.
that jump. It's fantastic. Your role as chairperson for ABM Ireland, which is an integral part of the SME ecosystem across Northern Ireland. Please tell us more about your role as chairperson of ABM Ireland and how did this come about?
Well, I suppose the interesting thing is that I am now, I have to say, 25 years in the small business support industry, the leadership support
Interesting.
industry. So 25 years this year. So when I went out and set up on my own, that was really into a management consultancy company. And, I'm also an NED in a number of private sector
Mm.
organizations, by the way. So I totally do walk the talk and continue to do that because I think it's hugely important in relation to the consultancy and the business support role.
Yep.
Um, I went on, we ran major programs for SME development, trade with involved training, mentoring, support. I set up probably one of the first private sector ILM accreditation centres in Northern Ireland and set that up for SME leadership. Um, so that all really good stuff. But in that role, you're not only working with the SMEs, but you're also thinking about, okay, how can we improve what we do within this business support industry? And the thing was, I was really frustrated with the fact that all of the business support industry, as I saw it, were treating small business leaders in exactly the same way. So they were saying, okay, you're a small business leader, therefore that means X, Y, and Z. And I have to say, over the years of my work, and in my own business delivery, it really struck me that actually we're not all the same, and small business leaders are actually not all the same. And there have been so much work done in the corporate sector to define different types of leadership and what that means in terms of teams and all of that. So for me, it was about saying, okay, well, let's look into the small business sector and say they are different. So my frustration in, in a sort of a typical entrepreneurial way, I thought, well, I'm going to do something about it. So I sat down and started to put together my first book, In Business with Yourself, which is all about that small business leadership. And I define 8 different types of small business leader. So back to your original question, the thing is, that definition is very important for the leader themselves, but it's also really important for those of us who are supporting those leaders. And so I was really keen to make sure that, and I continue to really be committed to the business support sector and making sure that we are adding value to our clients, that we are also coming from the position of where our clients are coming from. We're not trying to superimpose our thinking or our ideas on them. So setting up MENTupLEADup was really fundamental to that process. And MENTupLEADup is about obviously business leadership, but it's also about making sure that we in the support industry are also well qualified and well positioned to support the small business leaders.
Absolutely. And this was all in 2000, wasn't it, when you co-founded the first Indigenous consultancy companies in Northern Ireland to operate as this ILM accredited training centre for small businesses. It's quite something, isn't it, really? And you've spoken quite well about it there, which is fantastic. Um, and that's just an incredible thing. But then, of course, in 2021, you just mentioned a bit about your book. We're coming on to it a little bit now. In 2021, you became a published author of In Business with Yourself, published by Orphan or Opran Press in Dublin, which set out the executive identity model as an innovative approach to small business leadership. I mean, this sounds like a very interesting book, Michelle, I have to say. And bringing and becoming a published author is always an exciting thing, isn't it?
Totally. And it was just one of those things, really. I actually put together the first chapter of the book, and the
Mm,
publisher is Orphan Press, by the way. But
brilliant.
I sent off the first chapter of the book, and the really interesting bit was they then rang me and said, "Well, can we read the rest of the book?" And I said, "Well, actually, it's not written yet." So that was a really interesting journey. So they subsequently got me a contract and I finished the book. But I also just finished writing the book before COVID hit. How weird is that?
Mm,
So I was sitting writing the book, and then I think COVID really became a thing in the UK around the middle of March of 2020, and
it
I had
did,
just
yes.
finished writing the book. So the whole publication of it was delayed quite a lot because of that,
Mm,
which is totally understandable. But it gave me a real opportunity to really think through how I might get the message out there. And yeah, so look, what really comes across a lot in the book
mm,
is saying that we have different types of small business leaders. So, for example, if and there's no prizes for the names that I give the business leaders because I wanted to make it really reachable and really, just you could tell what it was by reading the label on the tin, basically. So we have
mm,
the descendant, which is the person coming into the family business, and they're a specific type of small business leader. Then we might have, for example, what I would call the game changer. So
mm.
someone coming in, setting up a business that's all about disrupting consumer behavior. We have some brilliant examples like Anita Roddick of the Body Shop, lots of different
Mm,
examples. Both small business leaders, but both required to have really different approaches to their business growth, but also coming at business leadership from very different angles. The descendants coming into an existing structure, a culture. There's probably a fairly established business
mm,
within a community, and there's a brand, there's a reputation. the game changers coming to the business, trying to disrupt behavior, which is expensive. It
Mm.
is also a steep learning curve. And if we in the business support industry try to work with both of those leaders in exactly the same way in terms of the growth of their business, then we're not doing it justice. And I think that's really fundamentally. And also, if a game changer tries to run a business that is a family business in the same way they would run a disruptor business, it's not really going to work that well.
Mm.
And so that's the essence. And there, of course, there's a lot behind all of that, but that's just to give you a flavor of what it is and the angle I'm coming from.
Absolutely, and I think, you say to write this book, I think was it just after or just before COVID? I mean, I did a similar thing. I started my book, I think it was in October 2019, and actually I then moved out to Mexico for 2 years, and I finished my book off there. I thought, well, it's a great opportunity, COVID, to actually get one of these, interesting parts of my life completed, which has been an author, writing a book, and plenty of time to do so without any
Yeah.
other business worries and concerns or family issues. So, yeah, great stuff. So very similar with myself there, Michelle, as an author
And
writing
I
books.
get
That's
that,
right.
and I get that sort of moving to just exclude yourself for a little while and
Yes,
actually write. I people write in different ways, don't they? But for
they
me, it
do.
was that I just needed to completely focus and concentrate only on that at that point in time.
Yeah.
I couldn't leave it and come back to it. And I've spoken to so many different people who've written books, and someone will say, "Oh, I can leave it and come back, and I get
Oh,
ideas." That wasn't my way.
no, and to be fair with you, that's not my way either because, hence the title of my book actually, where it's called My Way. But, for me, I do things in series, not in parallel. I'm not a multitasker. When I start a job, I have to finish it.
Mm.
And once you get in the groove of writing your book and you're setting yourself out with everything, you can't stop. You've got to keep going. Otherwise, you'll never
Yeah.
finish it. And that's what it was like with myself. So you're probably similar to me in that respect.
Yeah. And you do need quite a lot of discipline, I think, as well.
You do.
You do.
You do.
Yeah.
And I had a ghostwriter too, actually. I used to do like lots of emails and send them off. So what he was doing was taking all my fantastic writing and making it into one simple language. So it was good, nicely written in the end. So it's always good
Different
to have a
experience
ghostwriter.
again. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're also the founder, Michelle. You've mentioned this already just early on in the show, and executive chair of the MENTupLEADup technique, where business leaders meet business growth. And I understand personally, having looked at this, that the MENTupLEADup technique is a totally innovative approach to business growth that supports the development of the business leader as well as the growth of their business as well. So please explain more about the rich features supported within this business technique. It sounds absolutely incredible, I've got to say.
Well, I suppose it really did come from the book because, and in a way, I suppose my direction of travel
Mm,
after the book was published moved a little bit much more into developing this approach, developing this idea. And it's basically a model, it's basically an approach that brings together the understanding that a small business leader is crucial
mm,
and
absolutely.
they are the main decision maker most of the time. They're certainly the final decision maker in most cases. They are at the helm of the business. In a way, their personality is reflected in the business. So there's lots of things about a small business leader in particular that is unique. And it's really important that we recognize that when we are working with them to
Mm,
develop the growth of their business. So, for example, if you have a small business leader who is reasonably risk adverse, there's absolutely no point in working through the idea of equity investment, high growth
mm,
strategies. And the chances are they're not in that type of business anyway. Because what tends to happen, and what I've certainly observed over the years, is the small business leaders will tend to migrate to the type of business that is probably reflective, that is most reflective of who they are. So the leadership is really, really important. We have to recognize the leader. If we don't recognize the leader, we're on a no-win situation for the business growth. But when we recognize that leadership and then we put lots of strategic models and business development models mixed in with that, to me, that's the recipe to bake the cake.
mm. I mean, do you think that I mean, to be a business leader, you can't be risk adverse, can you really? Because being an entrepreneur is risky. And so you take on risk, obviously you balance the risk where you can and make, judgments based on whatever facts and feelings you feel at the time. Is there really anybody out there that's running business as a leader that's risk adverse? I've not met any, I don't think, to be honest, Michelle.
I think the thing is, though, there's degrees, isn't there, of risk
Mm,
taking? And, if you have someone in my book, for example, the hobbyist who really
yes.
comes to business because they have an idea, they have a craft, something really important, and they want to really develop a lifestyle business. If you tried to put that type of leader into a high growth tech company to lead that and to bring it into a high growth strategy, looking at investment and perhaps even looking at a very early exit strategy, it
Mm,
just wouldn't happen. And I don't think so. I think it's back to in my book, in my thinking,
mm,
the 8 different types of leaders will have different approaches to risk and lots of other things, not just risk, but also lots of other things that they need
mm.
to do in business. So their approach to financial institutions, their approach to networking. There's so many different things that go together to make up the growth of a company. And each leader, in my opinion, will go in different directions and have different approaches. And the MENTup lead up model takes all of that into consideration.
That's fantastic because we're all human beings, aren't we? At the end of the day, we all think differently. We all have different structures. So it's great that your Ment Up Lead Up philosophy actually caters for every sort of human being as such, really, and the leadership skill sets they have, in which directions they go in. It's quite a unique philosophy I think you've developed there. It's brilliant. Really is brilliant.
Well, we would be the first to say in the corporate world, when we
Mm,
when we talk about leadership being bureaucratic or
mm,
laissez-faire or different types of corporate leadership, and we work around that and we help to support them and how they develop their teams because of the type of leader they are, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was really important to me to take that approach and think, okay, how does this relate to small business people, entrepreneurs,
yes.
solopreneurs? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's great way of thinking. I mean, you're also actually an accomplished keynote speaker as well, amongst all your skills and professional adaptability. And you use the published executive identity model, which you developed as well, Michelle, as an award-winning approach, which provide the building blocks of effective small business leadership. And what are the key components to the executive identity model that we, as business leaders, need to understand and be aware of?
I suppose to some extent, I don't know, I mean, if anybody's familiar with, the
Mm,
likes of, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, anyway, Maslow did a psychology, assessment and said, basically, as human beings, for example,
mm,
we have different levels of needs. So if we look at and set it out in a pyramid, okay? So if we look at the bottom of the pyramid, our most basic requirements are food and shelter in order to survive. And then, of course, we go up the pyramid, and according to our needs, then can change according to the situation, the atmosphere, the environment that we're in,
mm,
until you get to the very top of that pyramid. And Maslow talks about the self actualization, which basically
yes.
means that as human beings, we get to the point, if we're lucky, we get to a point where we can actually really be fulfilled in terms of who we are, talents, so on. So in a way, when we look at the building blocks of the business and the leader, we're saying, okay, there are building blocks that we need to put in place in terms of that business growth.
Yes.
Um, and the thing is, if you look at around, certainly in our society and in the UK, we train our doctors for 5 or 6 years. We train our teachers for 3 or 4 years.
Mm,
Most hospitality managers now will go to university and have a 4 year degree, etc., etc. An entrepreneur appears on the scene, and we say, "Okay, let's give you 2 days training, and here's a template on how to do a business plan and an Excel spreadsheet on how to do a cash flow forecast." Away you go.
Yeah,
you know?
that's very,
And
very true.
so, yeah, and yet we expect these business leaders to employ people, to create wealth in the economy, to export in a lot of cases. And yet this is how we have supported them in their knowledge and their growth. And I just think we have so much to do.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It is a bit of a strange way, isn't it, really, being an entrepreneur, business entrepreneur? You either got it in your, in your bones, in your blood, or you haven't, I guess. You're not born with, well, I suppose you are born with it, but, you develop it as an individual, don't you? And it's a really scary way to work, I know, because I do it myself, as you have. Highs and lows all the way through. Fascinating. Pretty what keeps me going, the highs and lows.
And I think that's very entrepreneurial, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, of
entrepreneurs expect there's going to be highs and lows, but I think
course.
our job is to try and help those lows to be less and less, and also to give the information and the knowledge and the skills to help them to try and overcome some of those lows. Because, and
Exactly.
quite often, some of the things, I don't know about you, quite often, like one of the questions I'll be asked is, at what point do I give up on the idea if it's just
Mm,
not working? If it's just not working, when do I sort of start to roll that back?
mm,
And we all know, tomorrow could be that day, don't we? And I
we do.
suppose one of the answers I'll quite often give is, and it's not an easy one to answer. Sometimes I'll give the answer and say, look at what is happening in the environment. Do you see a window coming along? Do you see an opportunity coming along the track?
Yeah.
Is the economy going to give you, and have you properly, really hand on heart, properly validated and evaluated your idea in the marketplace? Because so many people, don't they? They go into business think that A, this is going to be easy, which is
Mhm. It's
nonsense.
not?
And B, oh, because I got the idea, it's going to work. And again, that's nonsense.
Mm.
You know, does your idea provide a solution to a problem in the marketplace? Because if it doesn't, it's not going to fly. And so there's so many blocks around this, building blocks, I mean, in terms of just
Mm.
making sure, and I bring that into the approach and the model that we use very much so.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. I mean, obviously, as well, we all have to take consideration the forever changing economic, and political environments because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year. It's forever moving, and we're seeing it now, of course, quite consistently, not just in the UK, globally. It's a real change going on, and that's you've got to take that on board as well, haven't you? That's hard to measure, isn't it? You have a good idea, a business metric, a pitch to got a good product. You think you're gonna do well with this, but these economic and political environments can change everything at times, and
Totally.
it's a sailing
And I
boat
mean,
with a rough sea.
whereas a few years back, and I'm not talking a long time ago,
Mm,
but even 4 or 5 years ago, working with businesses on their growth strategy, you would be thinking 5, 7 years ahead.
mm,
With the introduction of AI,
yes.
what can we get 3 years ahead these days? I'm not
Oh,
even sure we can.
I use
It's
AI
so
myself quite a lot, so yes,
it's so
it's a fascinating.
revolutionary. Yeah.
It is revolutionary. And to be
Yes.
fair as well, it's gonna put a lot of people's, roles in life at risk. I'm not sure about business. I think business will continue because it's AI can't really get into the mind of someone's thoughts and entrepreneurial skill sets. But nonetheless, it's gonna put a lot of people's roles at risk. Even authors, you can go and write a book by AI now apparently. So it's quite worrying. It's interesting. It's an interesting business concept, but worrying at the same time. Embrace it, I
Yeah.
think's the answer, and understand the risks and the rewards that AI can provide us all. That's what I'm trying to do.
And
So
totally.
just
I
taking on
think
board.
absolutely. And I think, the last thing anyone should be doing is digging their head in the sand and thinking
Yeah,
it's going to go away. I think the real challenge for all of us is to find how we can
embrace it.
embrace it, but also, yeah, make it work for us
Mm.
responsibly while we're also staying ahead of the game, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, I quite agree. We do have to do that. It's as you say, it's here to stay. It's not going away. It's going to become more and more empowered solution out there. AI, artificial intelligence, is going to become more intelligent, and we just got to take it on board and
Yeah.
work with it and use it to our
Yeah.
advantage, actually, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, keeping the enemy in old war terms, keeping the enemy very close to you, because if you keep them close, you know what they're doing, don't you? That's the
Yeah.
kind of thought process here, really.
Yeah, it's a good analogy, actually.
Yeah. It probably is, yeah, it's sort of analogy I would use. I mean, Michelle, you've also held a variety of board positions, which I think you mentioned earlier in the podcast, across economic, development, education, and government lobbying. I mean, can you please enlighten us further to these board positions? Also, what position was or is your favourite and why? Because quite a mix there, isn't there?
Oh, that's a big question. A favorite? I don't know. That's an evasion, a non-evasion answer. But I think
Mm,
at the end they were all quite different and still
they
are
are.
quite different. Um, I suppose the common denominator across them all in terms of any board position is that is making sure a board is not a CEO. A board is there for strategic direction.
Mm,
The CEO is there to deliver on that strategic direction. And
correct.
I think sometimes that gets missed in the mix. So I've had some really exciting ones. I mean, I've had one where we've gone in Northern Ireland from a number of further education colleges to just 7. So there was a big downsizing process. That was a massive responsibility at that period of time.
Mm,
And with massive budgets and an awful lot of staff. Right through to small business enterprise centers and how they can be more um proactive in terms of what they do with their clients. And so, yeah, I mean, but I enjoy it from the point of view that it's just a different perspective. And also, it's quite nice to give something back.
definitely.
Um, One of the ones that I probably am really like at the moment is I do sit on advisory panels for equity investment, for
Mm,
pitching for small businesses and new ideas. And that is really interesting stuff. And some of the innovation that comes through that process is really exciting. Um, but it's also about trying to make sure the person who is pitching gets beyond the passion for their product, because passion won't sell a product. There needs to be a lot more behind it. And sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to get that person to see, yeah, okay, I've got that, but of what else is sitting in behind this? Where's the market? Where's the figures? Where's the financials? Where's the growth? Where's the.
mm.
So I find that one really interesting.
And I can understand that because, I mean, it sort of leads into my next part here, which, as an entrepreneur in residence with Catalyst Incorporation, for example, you advise high growth startups on preparing for investment. We're in the investment cycle here. Now, this must be an exciting entrepreneurial point of focus and great to see successful results too. So to see the successes coming out of this must be a huge achievement and a huge uplift to you, Michelle.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And that's the one I really refer to because I just think
Mm,
there's such interest. A number of the projects being set up are maybe spin outs from universities. So there's been a lot of R&D and concept development that
mm,
has gone on maybe for years, really. And then it's coming to the point where, okay, let's see, can this fly in the marketplace? I think one of the leaders I talk about in my book is called The Academic. And
mm,
I do think that there's a little bit of danger of being stuck in the pre-commercialization washing machine, as I talk about. And so these leaders, yeah, the challenge is really to get them to get beyond the complete and utter continuous refinement of their product and say, nothing is perfect. Let the market help you to make the tweaks and changes. Let the market help you to understand how you can make your product better. But there comes a point when you have to take that step and that baby step and move out
yes.
there and be ready for the onslaught of, will it fly? Does it need tweaked? how does that work?
Yes.
And being there through that process, really interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, you're right there because how do you know your products are fit for purpose if you haven't gone to market with it? Because what you sit down and think, well, if I tweak this, I tweak that. Actually, do you really need to be doing these tweaks? Is the market, driving that to happen? Until you go to market with a product, I mean, that's really your R&D, isn't it? You can go out there and do the tests, and that'll give you more of a featured feedback really from the market to tell you what you need to adjust and
Yeah,
maybe change.
yeah.
So it's an interesting one, isn't it, that? Completely. I fully agree
Really
with that.
important, and it's just then
Yeah.
then you're getting into it's almost like there's a little bit of a line because then you
Mm,
cross that line and then you can actually say, well, actually now I'm actually
mm,
starting to get the business going.
absolutely. And also at the same time, not to go out too early is a bit of a fine judgment here because you don't want to lose credibility by putting out something which isn't fit for purpose at all.
Yeah,
So you've got to be very, very careful, haven't you, really? It's fit for judgment. And I guess that's where a board would come in. You can actually do sensible discussions at board level
yeah,
and get judgment on that in that way. So having an NED like yourself, for example, I also provide NED services, by the way, but that kind of NED function, I can kind of helps, doesn't it, with the consultancy? Sitting from the outside looking in, you can give more of a perceptive judgment, couldn't you, really, to whether it's right or whether it's wrong. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
an
And just,
interesting point.
and it's just that sort of helping the person to really think
Correct.
through and reaffirm or challenge their thinking. And
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And then in 2021, you became an ambassador for women in business in Northern Ireland, and you are a strong advocate for supporting female entrepreneurs. And absolutely right. I totally agree with this. So please expand more, Michelle. So interesting concept, this.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy wearing that hat, and it's
Mm,
something that when I get the opportunity, if I'm in a room, I will certainly try and promote, the whole and be an advocate for women in business. And I do think, women who are in business are also in business with everybody else. So, the challenges and the opportunities of running a business are the same no matter what,
yes.
mix you are, what gender you are. So I sort of take that on the chin a little bit, but I do think that we are have an underrepresentation of women in business. And I think that's an important point that we could definitely help and encourage more women to be in business. And
Mm,
there are definitely some nuances for sure, because traditionally we still have a society where there are definitely still elements of the caring role and so on that do tend to naturally fall back on women. So there's more challenges perhaps. But at the same time, I'm very aware that women, if they're going to be in business, they have to be in business
yeah.
and they need to sort of, yeah, bring that to the fore. We have also got a lot of women who are in part-time businesses, and how can we support them
Mm,
as their life journey continues to make that more perhaps into a more substantial, more full-time approach if that's what they want to do. And those are the things that I suppose an ambassador for women in business, that's where I see it. And just trying to we also have a huge diversity in terms of the number of women who can access equity finance, for example, for
right.
their
Yes.
ideas, which is a big challenge. And we don't have enough coming forward. That's one point of it. And then it's about how that pitching process goes. So there's lots of things that are maybe a little bit unique in terms of getting women into the marketplace. But so I enjoy it and I take
Mm.
the opportunity when I can to sort of bang that drum if it's
Oh,
there.
fantastic. Well, that's good. It's good for you to do that too. I think that's really impressive. I mean, you're also, I like this bit. It's really, really do like this part. You're also a regular business columnist with the Irish News, and you host a monthly business feature on Belfast 89 FM radio. I mean, now broadcast is one of my favourite pastimes, I have to say. So, how did this all come about, Michelle? Broadcast is wonderful, isn't it?
It is wonderful. The radio one actually, it is now fizzled. It's come to an end. and I suppose I've brought a lot of that into my own podcast work now.
Yes.
Um, but in terms of the business column, yeah, I mean, my niche, if you like, is really that small business, beating that small business drum within the column
Mm.
and the challenges that we have. And, uh, there's so much happening in the market at the moment. It's not difficult to find topics every month in terms of
Mm.
what needs to be said and how it's said. So I just take the opportunity to highlight. So it's more of a current, what's going on, what do SMEs and micro businesses need to be thinking about, what's perhaps coming down the
Yes.
track. So it takes lots of different angles. It really is great in that it gives me a real opportunity to be quite creative in thinking. I can be pretty blue sky because there's
Yeah.
so much going on that you can pick out so many different elements of it. And then the challenge sometimes is to think, okay, there's three or four things I want to write about, but I can only pick one.
Absolutely right. And to work, in that enterprise level of blue sky thinking is a great place to be. It's full of energy, isn't it? You've got a blank canvas and you can look at it all and go, wow, you know what? This is going to work or this isn't. That's a lovely way of thinking. I like the
Yeah.
blue sky world. I really do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's very close to me. So that's brilliant. However, empowering growth through professional mentoring is your passion. I mean, that's coming across in this podcast quite clearly. Working with business leaders and entrepreneurs, a real passion to help drive business growth and well-being. A true passion, Michelle. So, what is, and I have to ask this question because I know what it is, but what is a business mentor and the services they provide?
So yeah, I mean, it, it, there's a lot of talk about what is mentoring, what is coaching, what is consultancy, what is advice, and I talk
Mm.
about I trademark the acronym CMAC, CMAC, consultancy, mentoring, advice, coaching. They are
Yes.
different, okay? They are distinctly quite different. They do quite different things, and I can definitely get into that. But the real point is when it comes to a business leader sitting in front of you, honestly, I don't think they really mind or care whether you're wearing a consultancy hat, a mentoring hat, an advice hat, coaching hat. And quite often in the whole process, you're wearing all four at some
Mm.
point. And so for them, it's about making sure that you're providing added value to the process. Your support is providing real tangible added value to the growth of their business and the growth of their leadership. And that's what's really important to them.
Mm.
So in a way, I think our role, that's to me, that's first and foremost. If we're not adding value, then I suppose really, why are we there? And the client is going to ask that question anyway.
Mm.
And we do in the industry, as with many industries, it's not unique. We have those that are very good at what they do and those that are not so good at what they do.
Yes.
And I think overall, we need to try and bring the industry up a level. And I think that's quite important. But in terms of the actual one-to-one uh, and that mentoring support, really what we're trying to do is a few different things, I think. We're trying to help our leaders to, reaffirm their thinking, rephrase their thinking, give them other ideas perhaps in terms of how they're thinking. We're obviously there to challenge and to provide other options, perhaps more information, more knowledge, um, and really handhold them, give them that
Mm.
objectivity that sometimes, we all know, even in our own small business, sometimes your head is so down that your head is down and you're firefighting and you're not actually lifting it to look at where's this going and how is it going to get there. And I suppose in that consultancy, mentoring, advice, coaching capacity, whichever part of that we're choosing to be involved with, we are trying to just help that leader to get onto another platform. And
Absolutely.
yeah, we need to
Some,
be we need to be really experienced.
of course.
Yeah, but experience, that's not to take away. I do think that we can absolutely have young leaders and we can have young CMAX
Mm.
and they maybe bring, and we also have reverse mentoring, which is really, really interesting. Um, where there's lots of skills and knowledge that younger leaders and CMACs have that they can bring to the table. So that's not to say that, but I do think we still need that experience, whatever stage of the process we're at.
No, I agree as well, 'cause, some of the questions and discussions I often hear are, what are the difference between a business mentor, coach, and consultant, which you've kind of just addressed in a way. I mean, you could almost draw a Venn diagram, couldn't you? With the 3 circles all overlapping in the middle, where the core center is everything that a business mentor, coach, and consultant does. Because they are so closely aligned, aren't they, really? It's very difficult a question to answer sometimes because if you're a business mentor, you're kind of coaching and you're kind of consulting too, and vice versa. So a Venn diagram to me kind of typifies it in my mind, my logical
Yeah,
mind, that the core is a mixture of all three,
yeah.
and
And
that's
then
what I
you
kind
have
of think.
advisors, and you have advisors in there as well,
Yes,
because I think
you do.
we have some, and we have business advisors,
Yeah.
in lots of different uh, parts of the economy, lots of different institutions, from banking through to
Mm.
development organizations, lots. Yeah. So yeah, no, that's a really good. I think that's a really good description of it. So I can see that author coming out in you.
Yeah, forever the writer myself, and I apply mathematics to many things as well, hence the Venn diagram kind of descriptor. But, it's all good stuff, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, Michelle, how can working with a business mentor or consultant or advisor, like yourself, in particular, Michelle Lestas, Associates, benefit a business? Now, I'm trying to sell your services here, but obviously you're better at selling them than myself, that's for sure.
Well, it's more through the MENTupLEADup
Mm.
approach, to be honest.
Of course it
So,
is, yeah.
we really try and bring the consultant, mentor, advice coach to
Mm.
another level of their own understanding, their own knowledge, their own skills.
Yes.
Um, we really try and elevate that to another level so that they can really, support their clients more intensely and more comprehensively. And I think, I've probably like yourself, there's lots of people in the industry who've maybe come out of roles and wherever they have been before, and they look into this business support industry and they think, well, that's fairly easy to do.
Mm.
And I suppose on reflection, it probably is quite easy for people to take that step and, be an advisor, but then the question really is at what
Yes.
level, at what quality, um, and how is that being done? And as we always say, the proof is in the pudding. So if the
Yes.
clients are not getting a return, I mean, we have, I don't know what the figures exactly off the top of my head, but we've somewhere in and around um 90% of small businesses in the UK who have received support through
Mm.
consultancy, mentoring, advice, coaching, um, believe that it has absolutely improved their business and their growth. And yet, I think it's Sage or it's the FSB, I'm not quite sure. One or other have said we only have somewhere between 23 and 25%
Mm.
of business leaders in the UK who will appoint someone from the business support industry. I think that's really telling, and I think
Mm.
that's a real gap in the marketplace. You know,
Yeah.
what is it that we're not doing? Why are people not coming to us? And I think it's back to this point that we have such um a mixture of quality of within the industry, quality of delivery and quality of
Yeah.
approach. And I suppose really Mental Lead Up is trying to bring the individuals
Mm.
and those individual consultants, mentors, advisors, coaches to another level. And we work on lots of different aspects of that. Um, yeah,
Yeah, because 25% does seem, quite low, doesn't it, really? It's quite a low percentage.
yeah,
But there are quite a lot of, people out there as companies or as individuals providing these type of services. So I guess it's going out there and finding the right one that's fit for your business. And it takes time, doesn't it, and effort. So you've got to put the effort into look at it, and of course look to why you think you need to have so that kind of consulting approach delivered to you independently.
Yes. Yes.
It's a hard.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point as
Yeah,
well, that our clients also need to have a clear understanding of what they're trying to achieve as well through the
exactly.
process. And sometimes that can be a little bit muddy, which doesn't help. So we have to try and help them through that.
And maybe they're a bit fearful as well that they maybe don't want to be told that things are failing, and maybe they don't want to admit that aren't doing the right things that they should be doing. There's kind of a little bit of self-preservance there, isn't there, as well within people? But sometimes it's best just to hold your hands up and say, "Look, I need this third-party consultancy effort. It's going to help me, progress in business, and will be a huge influence on potentially moving forward and gaining new clients and being successful." But it is that admittance, isn't it, really, I guess, as well?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a really yeah, I mean, I think you've just hit on something really important in that I never underestimate the courage that it takes for a small business leader to put their hand up and say, I need help
Yes.
and I need someone to help me. And I think, we're all like that in life, aren't we? I mean,
We are.
it's not always easy to put your hand up and say, actually, I need some help with this. I can't do this on my own. It could be temporary, it could be longer term, it could be a lot of
Mm.
different things. It can come in lots of different shapes and sizes. Um, but I think when you first go in to work with a company, really understanding that that hasn't been a particularly quite often it's not an easy ask from their point of view.
No, indeed, it's not. And, when they do, it's a great thing. And there's lots of people out there, lots of business owners that probably could do with making that decision. And, stepping forward, would be the right thing for them. But, that's their decision. And maybe if they had a good board around them, that decision would be made for them to actually advise them that's what you need to do. But as an individual on your own, admitting failure almost, is a dangerous thing, isn't it, for them? So it's a
And,
mental
yeah,
block.
and I mean, I think we're quite privileged. I mean, I
Mm,
think every day when I'm working with companies, I just think how privileged I
mm.
am to be in the position where they want that support
Yeah,
from
trust
me
you.
or I trust you, and we now have a MENTupLEADup. We have a number of
Mm,
practitioners that are now licensed, so they're all developed and personally from
brilliant,
their own point of view. Yeah, so they're pretty experienced individuals, and so yeah, it's great to see that happening.
definitely. And of course, your work, Michelle, as well, has been profiled by key influencers in the business community, such as Theo Paphitis, I hope I pronounced his name right there, Bobby Kerr and Ellen Cullen. An amazing accolade to your successful business services, really, isn't it, Michelle?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I just it's wonderful, and it really is great actually, and to have people like that in their position who are also, yeah, they're really key, and people will respect their point of view, and I think to have people like
Mm,
that who respect the work I've done and who see its value
yes,
yeah, I mean, it's great. I can't take away from that because I'm very grateful to them as well for all the support they've given me and the sort of the shout out that they give. Yeah, for
that's
sure.
fantastic, isn't it? It's brilliant. It helps, doesn't it? Helps
Yeah,
with promoting your services, which is a brilliant thing.
yeah.
So congratulations to that. So what is next in the world of Michelle Lestas? There must be other things you're planning, doing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a busy, busy world.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, exactly. What small business leader isn't busy anyway? But no, we've had some really interesting we've had some really interesting growth over the last while, and we've gone international, which is great. We have people now on the international stage. I'm doing talks there. We have companies there. We are growing in that respect. I have some fantastic people who work with me who are all over the country. And that's probably about to go a little bit international too. and they're fantastic at what they do. So there's a lot to be done, and
Mm.
it's very exciting. I mean, we are in a very exciting phase of development and rollout, and yeah, so and some really exciting partners coming on board with us
Brilliant.
who are now recognizing the work we're doing, and that's just fantastic.
It is fantastic. I've just had a quick glance at the clock. We're approaching the hour. Can you believe it? An hour just
Where's that
disappears
gone?
just like that. I know, and it's because when you have these great conversations, time just erodes, doesn't it? It really does. And I am conscious as well that you're looking to go out just after 6 o'clock, so that's also in my mind. Forever looking after my guests as always, and as always.
It's very easy to have the conversation in order, Russell, when you have such a great host.
Oh, thank you. That's really I'll take that on board. That's really appreciated. And, any good feedback and bad as well, indifferent, it's all helps, to try and, provide better shows and, become more accomplished in delivering these shows as the time goes on. And I really enjoy it, so it's fantastic having you on. And of course, as always, and I always do this, on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show, we could talk forever, Michelle, absolutely we could, about your life as a business troubleshooting specialist, specialized in driving business productivity and profitability for effective leadership. It's been a huge pleasure, as always. And as always, the pleasure's all mine. And of course, the show's audience when this podcast is released on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show and the Lord Russell Baker YouTube channel. Yes, two shows for one program. Fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Michelle Lestas. Great round of applause. It's been a wonderful show.
Thank you. Thank
Fantastic
you.
talking to you.
Yeah,
We've got a few minutes. Do you mind just hanging on for a couple of minutes whilst I finish up and just a quick chat afterwards? You should
a
be ready to go out by then.
absolutely.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. The next episode on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show is the Silver Sales Bullet, where my special guest will be Ian George. Ian has a fearless attitude to business. God, I love that. It's wonderful. Where Ian looks at business differently to most business owners, and this is his great strength, apparently. Brilliant. Over the last 30 years, Ian has discovered and honed a very unusual set of skills that's enabled Ian, to open the doors to CEOs, billionaires, politicians, and even members of royal families. Great, fantastic. So another exciting show to look forward to on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show, and available, of course, on all podcast media platforms and the Lord Baker, Russell Baker YouTube channel. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the inside. So until then, it's au revoir from Michelle and au revoir from me.